late Thursday or late Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at those temperatures across the region. Also, those weather alerts are doing that light blue heavy freeze warning, that dark blue frost advisory. You might be wondering why areas toward Tallahassee don't have this, even though they have similar temperatures, just because of the different criteria the Weather Service uses in Tallahassee. Once we start having these conditions, they're not issuing these because they kind of expect folks to be used to these type of conditions multiple times during that fall and winter period. So just if you kind of are wondering about that there, I know we did have something very unusual though. As we were looking back toward Wednesday morning in southwest Georgia, we had a freezing fog advisory that ultimately got issued there, which was very bizarre. Odd conditions are coming together with the overall temperatures that are being below freezing with significant fog formation. I know in Charleston, South Carolina, at least, they had some real issues from this that were noteworthy with accidents, as we had some black ice there on some bridges and the likes. That's, something that can happen very rare around here, though, to get all that kind of moisture around with that colder temperature type of scenario. So, just, something really intriguing there. But yeah, frost advisory toward like Stark and Middleburg and Orange Park there and the like. As we zoom in there, you can kind of see, it's part of Orange Park, really. I know if you get in real tight, but my point is, where Blendon Boulevard is, most of you guys and the like here, really what, I know Orange Park where all the stores are is, a little bit different maybe than Orange Park where some folks, see the borders, but you get the idea. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, I know toward Gainesville, Alachua County, that frost here, I know you have students that are maybe wrapping up that fall semester here, and those exams maybe bright and early, possibly, and graduation for some. And in Tallahassee, we don't have the alerts officially, but you see the cool conditions, the great things ahead there for all those FSU graduates. As have some graduating over the weekend, and then you have just the overall examinations here in the classroom wrapping on up. Good luck to all those FSU, UF, and other students here across the region, the country, and the like here on those final exams as they wrap on up here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. But just always intriguing here to look at the different situations here as they evolve. It's going to be an up or down temperature pattern, as I was alluding to in the description here. Definitely something that is intriguing. If you're watching live, it's chilly. It's going to get even chillier here next few hours for most of you guys as we're looking and as we're tracking things. Of course, we're watching this up and down pattern here now. We're on here on this late Thursday, early Friday. Gonna be off again late Tuesday coming up into early Wednesday. We'll be back late Thursday into Friday. I know as we're kind of tracking the situation, just of course know that we'll be on if we have to be in these type of situations. If something warrants like severe weather. Not we're expecting that in the next week or though across the area, but we're watching, and we are watching the Pacific Northwest as well, because there is significant flooding, not flash flood warnings necessarily, but just a lot of river flooding. The current precip is not near as much as it was, but some of the forecasts are showing something really concerning as we look ahead here toward the Pacific Northwest with even more rain. Already bad river flooding, big problems there. Last 12 hours didn't really tell the story, but, it's just very bad in terms of the flooding there. Nice to see some really, really brutally cold temperatures coming in there into Montana now. Big contrast as you look there, maybe from areas, in toward parts of Wyoming. We're in Casper, Wyoming, are at 33, but there's 0 right now in Cut Bank, Montana. As we get on in there, you see some areas there below 0, parts of Canada. You see into Montana and Glasgow there. As we're looking at things, they're -1. As we give you guys the latest there, as we give you guys the very latest on that situation here, we're just kind of giving you guys the overall picture. We're trying to give you guys the overall update on things here. Maybe Glasgow, some folks, depending on, maybe between Scotland or the U.S., maybe Glasgow there, but you get the idea. We don't need to get too much into pronunciations here late at night, but you do see some negatives in parts of North Dakota as well. -4 in Williston, North Dakota. So some very chilly air in the view, and we're showing this because some of this chilly air here. We're going to start seeing in our picture, not to this degree, but it is going to be chilly, and Monday, Tuesday mornings a good bit colder than what we're seeing now in the parts of Illinois and Indiana right now. We're seeing some snow there, pretty heavy. In some ways, we're looking, in some of these different spots. As we look here, you see areas there like, especially south of Terre Haute, around Bloomington. I know that's where the presumptive, likely Heisman winner Fernando Mendoza's team resides there in Indiana. The Indiana Hoosiers, what an incredible job. #1 for the first time ever. We'll see how they do in the college football playoff. Those top 4 teams are really tough. After that, it kind of gets a little bit, less tough maybe. Oh, but you just never know what can happen. Notre Dame probably, you could have made the argument they had probably had the 5th best odds to win the title, and just based on the different analytics, so maybe even higher than that. But didn't even get put in the playoff there. The committee didn't give it to them, even though they had won 10 in a row. Didn't give them the spot that it seemingly looked like they had earned there, and they gave Alabama the spot despite, Notre Dame, South Bend, Indiana here, as we look on the map. But they're not getting the snow right now, but they only lost their first 2 games by a combined 4 points to 2 ultimately playoff teams in Texas A&M and Miami. They were, looking at one of those being at home, one on the road. But starting a new quarterback, and in Alabama, they had lost their 3 games by a lot. I mean, just between the FSU game and the Georgia game by a combined 35 points. As we look at our maps here, I'll put the temperatures up. You saw the 2 points, but there's your temperatures there. They're a little warmer, but still run that just above that freezing mark there in Alabama right now. As we track things here, you can kind of see all that snow there, even into Kentucky and in Virginia, a little bit of West Virginia, even on the Doppler perspective. So. Again, you see her in Evansville there, right on the edge. This is, kind of some snow though in northern Kentucky there as well. This is better than what they had 4 years ago. We just had that anniversary for that terrible situation of the Mayfield tornado where we had all the fatalities. Wonder whether it's not fun, if it's something you have to get out in. But it's a lot better to deal with than tornadic weather, obviously. Louisville's getting some snow there in ACC country. Indy getting snow. Cincinnati, Ohio getting snow here. As we look at, if you're watching live in the night, 2 in the morning on a national perspective, not as heavy, but some snow around Cleveland there as well. And as we look and as we track things there, western, central New York, some snow there. I know Utica and some of those areas have been seeing some snow there lately. That's been a storyline in that part of the country, so some wintry weather, but we're not really getting it here. We had that freezing fog Wednesday morning. That might be the closest we really get here. Once we get some rogue snow, flurry event or something, somehow we have a little bit of, cold weather, as we're looking ahead, we have some of that tonight, but more so Monday and Tuesday morning. Don't think we're gonna have moisture with it, but I guess that freezing fog not something easy to predict here. So we'll watch Monday, Tuesday. I doubt it, but nothing like what they're having up north. Probably not gonna have anything close to a white Christmas around here. The pattern is still in some warmer air coming in as we get later, like next week, and as we head toward Christmas. The early trends are that, but we shall see. And don't want severe weather though, and we're not really seeing much of that right now. For most of us, of course, the Pacific Northwest, how we're having flooding, not flash flood warnings, but in a way you can call that severe weather, and they are having that concern as we look ahead in the timeline. But if you look downstate, a lot warmer than some high school football state title games going on down around Miami. They're pretty warm right now, even in the night in the 60s. And the Bowls, unfortunately, for our area, they lost there to another team there from the state, Sarasota area, I believe it was, there in 2A. And then I know Rains will be playing down there coming up as well. And then I know even Thomasville, they'll be playing in the state title. They won their semifinal game tonight, I believe, as they're going to be looking ahead over next week and playing in a state title game there in the state of Georgia in high school football next week. So that's exciting there as we're looking forward to that. But as we kind of, broaden things, I know I kind of was showing some of this to you, but let me just reiterate. There is some fog in South Texas tonight. They're not seeing the cool air down in, South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley and the like. And you see definitely some of these warmer readings here. McAllen at 71, for instance. as we look and as we track things here, we're just trying to give you guys the very latest here on all of this as we protect and inform you, your friends, and your family. Temperature map can be interesting. Some readings in the 70s in the Gulf. Hurricane season's officially over. Not too concerned about anything. That's still a name that we did not get to so far this year. We'll see, if it somehow happens here next few weeks, even though we're out of our official hurricane season, the names switch over in January. If we ever, have something in January or, before, whenever, it could be, if it's whenever the first name will be, it'll be author next year in 2026, whether it's January or closer or into hurricane season officially next June. But we do have the drought index to say the burn ban for Bradford got officially lifted, but still be careful. Could end up getting it back. So if you need to burn, maybe burn, but just be very, very careful. There's a bunch of different rules you have to follow. In some areas still, you're never allowed to burn, like in Jacksonville, for instance. That's always the storyline there. So I still have moderate to severe drought. We're looking toward like north central Florida, like Lake City, still severe drought. We don't have the exceptional drought on the board anymore, at least, but still not a good picture. And this could go back up there if we don't get enough, precip here coming up. It's Tallahassee. It's not exceptional. Still extreme drought. It's not an ideal scenario. Starting to get more of that around the Tampa area here. Some severe drought as well. Down the coast there, west central Florida. Trying to edge towards southwest Florida there, for instance. And then as we look here at some more information, that rainfall forecast was not much here. So we had that weekend rain. And then plus, we were on Sunday talking about it. We hadn't had rain like that in a while, months really. And we're not looking at much more of that maybe for the rest of the year at this point. You see, towards North Jacksonville, there could be some passing showers Sunday or some other days here in the picture. Next Thursday may have some more appreciable rain. The models are different on that right now. But you see toward Tallahassee, we're only talking about a 1/10 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch there. As we're looking at Albany area there, only about a 1/10 of an inch there, give or take. And that's not really enough. But you can get an interactive radar available there on cloudy.com/radar. When we're on the air or when we're not on the air, as we're kind of giving you guys the latest there. Miami, more rain down there, about an inch or so next 7 days. As we're looking over southeast Florida, I know that area, this day, especially excited about their Miami Hurricanes in the college football playoffs. They'll be playing out in College Station in the environment, they're coming up next weekend. So that'll be something, to watch. Again, we're going to be out like Tuesday. We'll be on late Thursday though with a formal update here as we're looking and tracking things. So again, we're just going to go ahead and be monitoring all of that here as we give you guys the very latest. So just trying to stay on top of things here. Just trying to stay on top of things, and then as we go ahead and see that Georgia drought index now, you have extreme drought in a lot of South Georgia. So not a great picture there as we're looking and as we're tracking things, in toward the Peach State there as we're kind of giving you guys the very latest on everything up that way. Just always important to keep an eye on that scenario there. If you get up, further north, just gotta be really careful, definitely burning is probably still not ideal in a lot of cases here, despite it does make sense for some of the burn bans to be lifted. I agree, but eventually they're probably gonna have to come back and play unless we get a bunch of more rain here because we're still way below what we need. It did help temporarily, though. It was a temporary reprieve. Now they need a reprieve from the rain in the Pacific Northwest because this is we already had a bunch of flooding, record levels on the rivers in some of these spots in the Northwest, and now we're expecting some areas to get so on here. And this is I call it precip because we do have wintry weather in some of this. So I kind of made sure, we just measures quantitative totals here as we're tracking things, rain and other types of precip. And you see, though, just in general, that just rain, we're talking about 10 inches there, approaching that mark in some of these, hardest hit zones. There's some of these areas here, as you look, elevation can play a role. But if you have this in those areas here, that are more vulnerable, you guys have the risk for mudslides and like at points, as we're looking. I know, thinking back, it's a while ago, but I know we had a terrible mudslide in the Northwest here about 10 years ago. Didn't get near as much attention, probably. We have landslide risk, mudslide risk there, but I know about 10 years ago we had just a terrible tragedy there. It was, let's see here. I want to make sure I get this right because it was when I was in college, I think, but it just seemed like it flew under the radar. It looks like, yeah, in Washington State in March of 2022, there were 43 fatalities in a landslide situation there. March of 2014, March 22nd, 2014. To get that right there, March 22nd, 2014, a terrible landslide there where we had 43 fatalities. The State Road 530 landslide there in northwestern Washington State. So, yeah, we got to be really careful. We have river flooding. That's a big deal up there. And again, it's not about the current rain now, but the river levels, there's concern with those, and maybe have much more rain in the next 7 days here. I mean, at points there's reprieve like now, but these are not good numbers here to be shown. You see that in Canada, parts of Canada there as well. The map extends up there, but you can kind of see here Oregon, that rain. So we're not getting the rain we need here. They're getting too much rain. It's not a good balance here right now. It happens a lot, unfortunately, in meteorology, but something to keep watch for there and keep everybody in that area that's impacted by these bad floods. Some towns underwater. Just keep them in your thoughts and prayers. It's an area we don't really talk about, whether that's like this with the flooding. It's not something that's top of mind, but it can definitely be very problematic. As we look those to something a lot more positive here, the Jacksonville Jaguars, what a great season. Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen and Cam Little, they're all having there, and they're playing the New York Jets, which is a game where, it's one of those teams, they're a 10-loss team. You just can't overlook them because sometimes the Jags over the years, decades, unfortunately have overlooked teams, and then you have either a loss that just devastates your entire NFL season potentially in terms of a loss to one of the worst teams, and really all of a sudden puts you in spots where you have more must-win games to get into the playoffs than you would expect. It's just better going on over to Houston Texans, who are playing exceptional there. As good, if not better than the Jags here. And Jackson was a really tough, maybe almost impossible game against Denver coming up in a couple weeks there, So Jags definitely can win the rest of them. They can win that one too, but if they lose one, it could end up being Houston that wins the division. So don't want to be too pessimistic with how great the Jags are playing. But, Jags, you got to avoid injuries as well. Not expecting much rain. I did have to introduce a little chance because we're going to have some winds coming in, that cold air coming in eventually. Not during the game necessarily. Upper 60s aren't too bad. But, as we have the overall pattern with the boundary coming on in here, we're definitely going to have to be very mindful as we're tracking things. It's going to mainly be a dry front here coming on in as we look, a dry cold front. But there could be a few showers, but the wind could be pretty strong. It gets to about 20 miles an hour from the northwest there. So Cam Little, he does really well. One of the best kickers, in the league, for sure. If not the best. I mean, he kicked the longest field goal in the history of the NFL earlier this year. Now, that was indoors, though, and he has missed some outdoors here in Jacksonville. Last weekend, though, he was great in the rain. What a great job Cam Little did in that rain, but this week, that wind could actually be a little bit stronger. The rain, not necessarily there. Sunny for the most part. Could have a quick passing shower, though. I know that seems weird, sunny, but I also have a little bit of rain chance. I could have went a little higher, honestly, than 10%. Some stuff is showing less. My intuition says a little bit more. Again, you could make the argument for 20% here, even though a lot of the game could be sunny. But we'll keep an eye on that here, kind of changeable weather, because if you look at Monday morning, we're going to have 20s around. So we definitely have the boundary coming on through. That wind coming from the northwest starting to cool things down, that wind chill factor a little bit out there, even though upper 60s and sunny sounds pretty nice. It may start to, especially later in the game, the sun's out, so maybe not. As I look at some data here, I just want to look at some data. Make sure I get this right here for you guys. You guys at home. Don't want to give you the right information. Don't want to lead you the wrong way here. I mean, they're not. Weather service didn't really call for wind chills till later that night because the temperatures are warming up. Closer to 70 at times. But that wind could be upwards of 20 miles an hour. So that's something to be continuing with here. Maybe it's not that bad. Saddened element. But, when you have winds from the north, the west, that's generally a cooler wind. The winds from the south, the southerly wind, that's brings more moisture in. That's not what we're seeing here with this, as we started to have that cool down there on that Sunday. So, just hopefully the Jag can get a 10-4, but, probably going to be a playoff team. But it's, right now the division's very much in doubt because Houston's playing so well, and they're on a big winning streak there. The Texans have really done well as the Jags have. I mean, Texans, they really turned things around. The Jags have been pretty consistent all year. That fourth quarter in Houston could end up being what cost the Jaguars the division because it's so tough. I mean, Indy looking like they're probably going to have trouble winning now with their injured quarterback, Daniel Jones, out for the year. And now Phillip Rivers, who's been retired about 5 years, coming back to play for them. So we'll see how that goes up against Seattle. Probably going to be tough for them, but we shall see. But yeah, sunny but strong northwest wind, a little bit of passing shower, not out of the question there in Jacksonville. That game on CBS. Fog at times, not necessarily tonight with the freezing temperatures, but like coming up Friday night, maybe when we don't have these freezing temperatures, some of these nights here and there are more likely than others in different spots. But just be careful. This can be, tragic here with accidents and the like, as we're looking. So just make sure when dense fog is sledding and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. Make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible. So other vehicles will be using the low beam headlights and leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. So again, definitely something to be mindful of as we're looking at this, as we're tracking this. Just kind of be, watchful of the overall situation. So again, just something, we have to be paying attention to. As I say, that extended forecast, some cool weather here today. Jacket weather, cold weather in the morning, but it's, pretty nice by the afternoon. 70 degrees, you have 74 on Saturday, and then we warm, up there in the night comparatively to 49, but then 71 in the day, some of those warmer areas in Jacksonville, you have that wind there, River City, and, again, it could get to 70 at points, but most of the time in the upper 60s. That's why I went with that in the forecast there. Cold on Monday, though. What a difference. We have the wind on Sunday picking up. Maybe it gives you a sign of that. But Monday morning, you need to make sure, and you already need to tonight, really, protecting those plants. Hopefully you did so. I know we're at 33 right now. Here used to start on our thermometer. Probably having some of that frost formation. 39 Keystone at Airport, 39 Gainesville. I know. You have a situation where some of those rural areas, winds die down, get colder out there. That can lead to more frost and the like. But you see by Monday morning, 29, bundle up, please. Monday morning, 28 on Tuesday. And then starts to warm up there, though, by Tuesday afternoon. Some of those areas in South Georgia could be mid-20s here. Bit of a hard freeze, especially in South Georgia, Monday and or Tuesday morning, because we're going to have much colder air to the north. We kind of showed you an idea of just the overall weather pattern with some of those temperatures up north there, and just how things, the idea of how things can be with the meteorological temperatures there, and it's 71 there by Wednesday, 76 on that Thursday, that warming back up. It's a roller coaster here, up and down with the overall temperature picture. That is something to be mindful of, This weather whiplash really going from 29, Monday morning 28, Tuesday morning to 76, approaching 80 in a few spots by Thursday afternoon with some showers, starting to become a storyline. So we go from, 15 degrees or so below average for Tuesday morning to 10 degrees above average by Thursday afternoon, give or take. So, as we're looking here across the area. So that is a big contrast there. Not a lot of rain. We need the precip. We got some help. A lot of it's getting an inch plus on Sunday. That was helpful. I mean, some folks didn't want that during the game, but we had to have that or we would have got the drought numbers to get worse there. We have to have more rain still. It was good to get what we got. It definitely helped a short-term reprieve from the highest levels of fire danger, but we have to have more here. We're gonna have concern because you saw it was through Tuesday, or the numbers updated on Thursday, but through part of Tuesday there with the drought details, and we haven't had rain since then. But it helped a little bit there. But we have that rain factored in from the weekend and the drought maps, and it didn't help enough. Obviously anywhere close to enough to get us out of a drought for most spots at least. I mean, I'll cut back over to that here real quick and show you guys. If you're just tuning in live here or recording, you know, or watching on the recording, I should say, and just scrolling on through, you can see that it still have an extreme drought after the rain we had. I mean, it was good rain. We lowered about a level or so in a lot of spots, give or take, on the drought map here in our area. Not everybody, maybe, just depending on the specific spot. I mean, St. John's and Flagler, most of you guys doing pretty good over there. I know we don't want to repeat what happened in the mid 80s in Flagler County with wildfire history. And right now, we're not seeing any drought. So that's great news for Flagler County. Most of us can't say that. I know we have to say, all that rain down in Central Florida, too much rain, unfortunately, earlier on. And this year we had that flooding rain toward Lake County, toward parts of Brevard. It was indirectly because of a hurricane to the south there, devastating Hurricane Melissa. Indirectly in the overall pattern, they had all that training rain there, all that moisture, the precipitable water values there being higher, but they had the flooding consequence, so it's going to be harder. Luckily, they had the fire consequence here later on, but you see up to the north, you do have to be very careful around Stark, Gainesville, Gilchrist County. You see getting worse even comparatively, not to last week, but just geography-wise. From one spot to the other, we have Lake Butler, severe drought, McClinney, severe drought, Lake City, Jasper, Live Oak, severe drought, Perry, severe drought there. So you kind of get the idea, extreme drought, Tallahassee. You had a bunch of that in South Georgia as well, as we were showing you guys earlier on. I mean, we have this cool air, and we have this extreme drought there. As we look, around Bainbridge and Thomasville and Valdosta and Waycross and the like. Now, speaking though of the map, I do need to do one more thing. I need to congratulate the FSU women's soccer team on that win Monday night there out in Kansas City against Stanford to win another national title. What great success that the FSU women's soccer team has had here. As we look here over the last decade or so, starting back in 2014 when I was there, we won a title and they won a bunch here just in a little bit more recent years. What a great job. They're a dynasty for FSU women's soccer. They're on the FSU campus, the FSU students there, in sports there, academics, athletics, they're coming together in that soccer title. So impressive as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things there. Go Noles, obviously. I know it's, a sport where it gets less attention than most, obviously, as we're looking, we don't talk about it much here. Most folks on TV don't talk about it much, but they've had that women's soccer program there. Tremendous success over a couple different head coaches. So, really great job there for the Seminoles, obviously, as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things there. Just for a second, we'll put the FSU logo up there for that to honor the Noles, that soccer team there. FSU soccer. They don't have a men's team, so we'll just call them FSU soccer, Roy. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, what a great job they did getting that 1-0 win. That goal with about 3 minutes left. You go like 87 minutes in soccer. Don't have any points. Neither team scoring a goal and then one goal, and that gives you the national title. So it's something that's very exciting for the FSU community there with that national championship. Brian Pensky there getting the job done, his second national title at the school here. Just in a span of 3 years. Another one a couple years ago kind of got overlooked because it was the day after FSU got left out of the playoffs in college football. And since then, football hadn't even won a road game since then. But soccer has done incredible again with, one title that day and, the day after. And then this Monday, this week, the women's soccer team getting the job done. Congratulations to that group of women there in Tallahassee and the coaching staff led by Brian Pensky. So, again, just really exciting there for the Noles, for FSU. Just great work there. Those young women just coming up so clutch there on Monday night. As we go ahead and start to wrap it up here, we're going to go ahead and just switch the logo back because, even though it's my school, the Noles, go Noles, it's not a sport where we barely ever talk about it on here, and it's not talked about much overall. So, even though it's a real big deal for alums, students, players, nationally, it doesn't get much attention there. It's not even to the level of college baseball there or college softball, but still a great accomplishment for the Noles. Congratulations there. As you see, Orlando, 51 degrees, 40s down toward the Space Coast there, some of the spots at least, as you look. And I know we had a rocket launch there on that Thursday there from the Cape Canaveral area. So it's just always intriguing, with those as we're looking down there toward Brevard County and the like. So again, just always intriguing there. Just intriguing with the rocket launches and the like. We're always watching, those. They're different ones, different time frames. Just something to look at there for sure in the sky. But let me go ahead and start to wrap it on up. I think we talked about pretty much everything we need to here tonight. Again, we do have a freeze warning effect for a lot of our area frosted volumes for some other spots. Some spots you don't, have them because you've already had the freeze. Sometimes you call it the first freeze, and then, folks have to, start realizing that, or first hard freeze, and then start realizing that you have to kind of already be, on guard for them for the next several months on and off. So, different philosophies between offices, weather service offices. We're down to 32.3 now here east of Stark, so officially, we've round down to 32, which you call freeze here pretty much at this point, as we're, 32 degrees is that freezing point here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. So, again, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for trusting me. Go Noles. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Back next Thursday, late Thursday, early Friday for more, unless we need to pop back in earlier. Enjoy things. Stay safe out there. Some Christmas parades like in Stark here. So the weather for that, gonna be something where you do need a jacket here because it will be after dark. If it was during the day, it wouldn't be as big of a deal about having a jacket because you'd be up in the 70s. But then as you get to 6 o'clock, that temperature starts to drop pretty fast there. Maybe not as fast as we were thinking. We're talking back on that Sunday. We were talking about the temperatures, dropping there. But definitely something where it will be, down into those low to mid 60s. So that's enough for at least that light jacket. Not as bad as it could have been, though, that's for sure. Sunday night, it been a little bit cooler. Monday night, would have been a lot cooler there as we're looking. So that's an improvement what we were talking about the other day. That is good news. Monday night's like if it was at 6 o'clock, you're in the mid 40s. So Saturday night, a lot of mid 60s. You might be able to get by without a jacket, but after the sun goes down, it starts to get kind of chilly out there. So not terrible weather by any means. Just go enjoy those parades. A lot of them Saturday. I would, think here across the area, other than in Stark, and we had a bunch last week. Some of them did have rain issues. Shouldn't have that Saturday. So just be careful, obviously, but enjoy things the best you can. And as Christmas is on the horizon, a very early Merry Christmas, but we'll be back late next, week here, then from update late Thursday into early Friday. So make sure, you're watching, then, and we'll be on here before then if we need to be. Again, just stay safe out there. Have a great weekend.